Okay.
All right. So do you want to put the slides up? Working on it? Let me know if you need me to stop, okay? Otherwise, I'll just get going.
It's not showing. Tom, can you help me?
Have you started the live streaming yet? If not, I'll hang tight a minute.
Does it have to do with the light angle, the PC?
My knee. Every week that we've gotten together. And again, I have a lot of information to share with you. So if anybody needs to leave before I'm done talking, feel free to do that. But regardless of what time we're done, I will stay after for anyone that needs to visit.
Try now.
Maybe I'll sit down for a second, huh?
Can you put it back to PC?
For those of you that stay, I will have a prize to give out at the end. So we'll have to figure out a way to select a prize based on how many are here. I'll have to pick a number in my head. And I don't know how I'm going to do that. I know what I'll do. But anyway, don't let me forget the prize for those. Here we go. Here we go.
Thank you, Tom.
You are all great back there. So what do you think? Shall we get started?
Yes.
All right.
You ready, Kate? Okay. Yes.
Welcome, everybody. Just so pleased to be here this final evening. Tonight is the 6th of our series that we've been doing since last October, every month. And so I just want to say a special thank you to the team that has worked on this to be here. Deacon Jim Somweber, Becky and Tom Hayes, Michael Bronk, and of course, I cannot forget all the staff that have been wonderful in working with me and helping me to get this all done. For those working the sound booth and the visual aids, thank you so much. So tonight, we'll go to the next slide. As you can see, our talk is based on these things, and I just want to jump in because I've got lots to share, okay? So we'll go to the next slide. So I wanted to start by sharing, if you recall, I have a handout called the 10 Signs Checklist. I have been using that since 2009. It's highly valuable. It's something you can get online. I have emailed it to more people across the country than you can imagine. It's incredibly helpful. On that checklist of those 10 signs, there's a what's typical line. And that's where these things came from, okay? So I want you to hear what's typical for normal aging. Do any of you feel you're the same as you were when you were 20? So we know that we change as we age, I personally think we get better, but think of how much our computer has been doing up in our head our whole life long, right? And so we're not maybe as quick to pull up memories. So let's talk about what is normal aging. First of all, I do, and all of us can sometimes forget names or appointments. The key piece here is we remember them later. Okay? The second thing for typical aging is making occasional errors when balancing a checkbook or when adding up something, but it's not that our math skills have gone to being unable entirely. Now, I want to put a caveat to that, and that is, if people were never good with math, it's not fair to say that they're going to be better with math now, right? So thinking about those that used to be able to balance their checkbook or do math for their taxes okay, and now are struggling with it. But math skills is one that we notice being a problem. And if any of you have had your memory assessment done at your primary doctor's office, that is a question that we do further in if people need more testing, is some of the math skills. The third one is occasionally needing help to use the settings on a microwave or to record a television show. Every time I get a new iPhone, I feel like I have to relearn that smartphone. And so keep in mind that none of us were born with the phone in our hand like our kids are today, right? The fourth of the 10 is getting confused about the day of the week, but figuring it out later. Now, I will tell you that I truly have to work hard with, okay, you want to know the day of the week, so what have I been doing the last couple days, and does that help orient me to what day of the week we are? It's so much different when we're not working full time. And so that is normal aging. We can figure it out if given some time. How about the fifth one? I would guess that many of you maybe have had possibly cataract surgery. And my husband had that in the last year, and he definitely had vision changes because of cataracts prior to his surgery. So vision changes that are related to cataracts is normal for aging. But there are other people. There was a psychologist in my early memory loss program on Summit Avenue for a year. And his first symptom for his dementia, his first symptom was his vision. He couldn't judge distances anymore. Okay, so picture an individual that can't judge distances. If they're driving a car, how are they going to know how close to the stop sign they are? How are they going to park their car in a parking lot? And we could tell with Tai Chi classes, when the instructor would come in, he would make his way up, and if I didn't help guide him, he would have been in her face because he couldn't tell distances. Now, does that go along with what you think of dementia? When we use the word memory loss because it's more acceptable by society, it truly does not encompass all of what dementia can unfold, okay? So vision changes, but that's normal to have cataract vision changes. The sixth one is sometimes having trouble finding the right word. And that's normal, okay? The seventh is misplacing things from time to time, such as a pair of glasses or the remote control. My husband has gone to putting those finders on a lot of stuff because then he can go to his smartphone and it can tell him where he left his back pillow. It can tell him, or he can ring his phone when he can't find his phone from his watch. So there are a lot of tools that we can have to help us, but it's normal that we misplace these things from time to time. Do any of you ever make a bad decision once in a while? And honestly, I would say that that's not just normal aging, that's just being a human being, right? Also, the ninth one is sometimes feeling weary of work, family, and social obligations. So it's normal for us to have times when we just need a pause. But with people with dementia, they truly get to where they isolate themselves. That's pretty common. Number 10 is developing a very specific way of doing things and becoming irritable when a routine is disrupted. I find myself definitely doing this when I'm tired. I'm more patient when I'm not as tired, but maybe you can hear some of this in your own self. So the next slide that I want to go into is I want to just talk a little bit about brain health tips. And this diagram is excellent. It tells you how much you should give to each of those areas, and it is a very specific study that the Alzheimer's Association did, and these are things that they know can help your brain. So this isn't just somebody that said, we think this could help. What I need you to know is I went and did a lot of research to figure out what the study was pointing to when it came to cognitive exercises. And I've been telling you about Lumosity, but brainhq.com is who they used to create the cognitive games. And brainhq.com, if you go on their site, I'm going to go to that in the next slide and explain a little bit about what they have to offer people. So if you go to the next slide, what I want you to know is they have on their home page a section where you can try a few of the exercises. And they also, I'll give you that in the next slide, but let's do this one first. So there's 6 main categories that they work on for your mind. Attention, brain speed, memory, people skills, intelligence, and navigation. And if you go to the next slide, what you're going to see is I did not go on this site because it took me a long time just to find this information. But I want you to see what's free. They call it Daily Spark. And they split these free exercises through the day. And this is the company that was used by Johns Hopkins for their National Institute of Health funded ACTIVE study. Now, let me tell you what ACTIVE stands for. It's an acronym. Advanced Cognitive Training for Independent and Vital Elderly. So all of us have the opportunity to use this, and I'm not encouraging you to pay for it. At least get involved with their free offerings and take advantage of what has been studied and found to be very helpful for people. If we go to the next slide, what I want to do is show you something to be thinking about. Now, although that one isn't as brightly colored as some of the pictures that I use, it still represents what is healthy for your brain when you're eating. And what I want you to see is that this is giving you an example of what's on the Mediterranean diet. The Mediterranean diet and the DASH diet, which is for helping with people with hypertension, that combined has become the MIND diet. The Mediterranean, I'm looking for what the MIND stands for. Anyway, it's the MIND Dash Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay. That's what it stands for, and is an exceptional diet. I've been working on eating this way for the last year, and I just want you to hear what they're having you think about to incorporate into your diet. Can you eat green leafy vegetables at least 6 servings a week? Now, we're not talking about head lettuce. We're talking spinach. I love baby kale. Have you tried arugula? Other vegetables, at least one a day. Nuts, 5 servings a week. I put a little container of nuts in my purse so I can just pop a few. I like the unsalted bag that has a variety of nuts in it. Berries, 2 or more servings a week. Beans, at least 3 servings a week. Whole grains, 3 or more servings a day. Fish, at least 1 serving a week. Poultry, 2 servings a week. Olive oil, use as for your cooking and your dressings. And then they've also put wine on that list, but I want to just offer a caution with that because we really need to use wine with moderation because too much alcohol is very, very hard on the brain as well. So let's go on now to the nun study. I want to tell you, do any of you, is this the first time some of you have heard of the nun study? Okay, I want to tell you, I think this is really exciting. So let me read a little bit about it. Dressed in a black and white habit, 104-year-old Sister Mathia beams for the camera. Her wrinkled hands clasp a pair of knitting needles. A finished pink mitten sits in her lap. 3 months before her death in December 1998, Sister Mathia remained quick-witted and sharp. As a participant in the landmark nun study, Sister Mathia was one of 678 nuns at convents across the U.S. who volunteered to help epidemiologist David Snowden study aging and Alzheimer's disease. They agreed to complete a regular battery of cognitive and physical assessments, and most also donated their brains to the research effort after they died. Started by Dr. Snowden in 1986, the nun study tracked the physical and cognitive health of these nuns. Sister Mathia became the study's poster child of healthy cognitive aging, and it began at the University of Minnesota. It did come back here for a while, and now it is at the University of Texas in San Antonio. So I just want you to know that because of the nun study, we know so much about what healthy aging can look like. The key piece, and let's go to the next slide so I can share that with you. Because of the nun study, we know that some people with disease pathology may not exhibit its symptoms. Some people that show that they have a dementia, whether it's Alzheimer's or another dementia, may not show the symptoms of it. Why? Cognitive reserve. What does that mean? It's the brain's ability to withstand damage and continue functioning optimally, even in the face of aging or neurological diseases. So they found that some of these nuns were very active, very well expressive, continued to share and help others. And on autopsy, they showed dementia. They had Alzheimer's disease going on in their brain, and there were lobes that had shrunken. So what does that tell us? We need to embrace and invest in education as it enriches our brains and fortifies our cognitive resilience. I'm telling you to study and enjoy anything that's a positive for you. If you don't like learning about it, do not take it up. That actually will be hurtful for your brain. Do what you love and dig into it. Just jump in. Also, nurture social bonds. Prioritize emotional well-being. Engage in regular physical activity. They know that a healthy body is linked to a healthy brain. Okay, so what we know from what they did with these nuns, so if you think about a study with a group of nuns, it's a perfect audience because they had access to their education records from at least possibly age 18 on. Not everybody else that comes into a study, we'd have access to that information. Most are very involved in higher education and have continued learning through their lifelong. I don't know of a nun that's ever quit working, right? So they've stayed socially engaged. Do you know many nuns that are out there partying and drinking and smoking and carrying on? So again, they were all similar to study, and they had access to a really good content that they could look at. It was the perfect group to study. So I just want you to know that we learned a lot about healthy brain from the nuns. And there is a book or more out on this. You can find YouTubes on the nun study. It's an absolute fascinating study that's gotten worldwide attention. I want you to know about this book, Aging with Grace, and it does show the positive spirit that these nuns had in their life. It also talks about how important community and faith were to these women and their life. So let's jump into the next piece that I want to talk with you about. There is a significant role that faith and spirituality have in our lives. Very significant. Faith can be a component of spirituality, but both provide individuals with a sense of comfort, guidance, and support in navigating life's challenges. So just humor me as I walk you through the definition of faith and the definition of spirituality. Faith typically refers to a belief in something without evidence or proof, often associated with a specific religion or set of beliefs. Examples of organized religions: Christianity, Islam, Judaism. Faith is often based on a set of doctrines or teachings, often involving rituals, ceremonies, and traditions, serving as a way for followers to express their devotion, to seek guidance, and to connect with their community. Faith communities are often structured around a church, mosque, or synagogue. Now, the definition of spirituality. It's a broader concept. It encompasses a sense of connection to something greater than oneself, an inner search for meaning and purpose in life, and a belief in the existence of a higher power. Okay? So I'm going to talk about them both kind of interchangeably, but I just want to clarify that. So on the next slide, we want to talk about the spiritual needs of those living with dementia and their caregivers. Some essential aspects of spiritual needs can easily be overlooked or difficult to identify, especially if we wait until late-stage dementia. Why? Because of the person's decline in their thinking, their memory, their behavioral performance. And now also think on the side of the caregiver. They're often juggling so many balls. Spirituality is vital in promoting health and well-being, providing structure, meaning, and understanding through daily life. Let me tell you this list of benefits, because I think we need to hear this. Benefits include that our spirituality maintains social interaction and health. It helps us develop coping strategies. It helps us foster our personhood. It can help some of us recover from illness. And sometimes, let me put a caveat to this. Sometimes you have to think of the person with dementia may not be healed from their dementia, but what about their mental health? There may be something during that disease that actually helps them to recover from some difficult mental health challenges. I think back to my men that I got to know in Minnetonka at one of my program sites, and 3 of them traveled to Washington, D.C. regularly to help change legislative look and laws towards Alzheimer's. And they were all feeling very satisfied about the work that they were doing. The next is to promote positive aging and decreased levels of psychological stress, including depression. So I think that what we want to do is be thinking of the list on the right-hand side. Why bother? I think that is a big enough list of why we bother with spirituality and with our faith as people are involved in living with a dementia. So how is spirituality expressed? It's through our established beliefs, practices, values, and traditions, and that's what's valuable to the person. When facing advanced illness, persons have increased spiritual needs, requiring spiritual care, a dimension of palliative care. Spiritual care and support are often reported as the most neglected dimension. But look at the sentence prior. When facing advanced illness, persons have increased spiritual needs, requiring spiritual care. Spiritual needs, just like physical needs, are essential to all of us as human beings. Okay, on the next slide, I want to read a quote here. People living with dementia have a profound lived experience of the phrase, "All we have is the present moment." The past may seem foggy and the future is uncertain, but God is working and moving and providing grace each day, each hour, and each moment. No matter the level of dementia progression a person is experiencing, they can still engage in some form of spiritual practice, whether it's hymns, prayers, and rituals. These can bring a profound sense of joy, peace, and connection. Now, every single one of us in this room, do we not want those three things right up until the moment we take our last breath? Joy, peace, and connection. I most certainly do. So we'll go on to the next slide, and I want to talk about, in dementia care, the importance of spirituality. Why? It can help us in finding meaning, hope, and connection to the past, to the present, and to the future, and in coping with our condition. Persons living with dementia rely on others to support their spiritual well-being. Let me repeat that. Persons living with dementia rely on others to support their spiritual well-being, particularly as their condition advances, both in that time of their journey through dementia as well as at the end of life. So without spirituality and religion, we'll go on to the next slide. Spiritual distress can occur, causing poorer patient outcomes. What are they? Depression, diminished quality of life, increased anxiety, greater physical pain, and decreased emotional well-being. Unaddressed spiritual needs can also disrupt the building of trust between healthcare providers and families. Does this surprise you to hear how absolutely important spirituality and faith is in our life journey? We must identify their spiritual needs and ways to address them, especially from the perspective of the person living with dementia. And ideally, we need to do that when they're in their early stage. Now, I've got some help for you, but let me continue on this for a minute. Spiritual needs include the individual and in-community needs to express spirituality and religiosity alone or in a group. The need to participate in religious rituals and practices such as at mealtime prayer and at bedtime prayer, participating in Holy Communion, lighting Sabbath candles, citing religious exclamations, singing and listening to religious songs, holding religious objects, and talking about religious activities. For example, talking about when they were in the church choir, which include working with spiritual care providers. Participating in lifelong hobbies, playing card games, listening to classical music, enjoying holiday celebrations. Now, I'm reading this of what spiritual needs include. Does that surprise you? I'm going to read it again. Spiritual needs include participating in lifelong hobbies. It also, spiritual needs are religious needs. The importance of identifying and accommodating the religious diversity of the person living with dementia. It is important. Spiritual concerns were expressed through prayer and include, particularly in the early stage, but I've also heard this from some people in the middle stages, their doubt and disillusionment. So now let's go to the one that includes those for early stage dementia. Those living in the community, and I believe these would be among those also living in assisted livings and care centers. Of course, does it surprise you that it would be centered on the hope that there could be a cure found for this so that they wouldn't have to continue this through all stages? But it's important to personalize spiritual care to cover 4 elements: religion, meaningful relationships, nature, and art. So now let's talk about the meaning of spiritual care with those living with dementia, family, and staff. So from the perspective of patients living with moderate to severe dementia, spiritual care is recognizing and attending to little things that promote personhood, such as being intentional in caring, listening to, and being with them, and upholding religious rites and rituals. So I'm going to take you into what's called a spiritual assessment. Now, don't go to sleep on me, because I feel that these questions are valid. I think they're easy. I think you, knowing your persons, choose questions that you think they might be interested in answering. You don't have to ask them all. You may choose only one, or you may rewrite it to sound a little different. So let's go through, starting with what in your life gives you hope, strength, comfort, and peace. Another question you could ask is, do you have any spiritual activities that you find beneficial or comfortable, such as praying, meditating, listening to music, or reading a sacred text? Now, don't you think even answering either of those questions could help you in providing for this individual as they journey into dementia? Is a spiritual group or religious community beneficial to you? And if yes, how so? What kinds of support and assistance does or may this faith community offer you in coping with your health issues? Do you have spiritual beliefs that assist you in dealing with stress? What do you cling to in difficult times? What gives you energy and keeps you going, including meaningful relationships, art, and nature? Has your health or dementia had an impact on your relationship with God? I've worked with many people that are angry, either because of a traumatic death that's happened, or a loss of a loved one, or over the diagnosis with their dementia. So it's important for us to know if they're angry with God. I will tell you, I went through a very difficult time when I was in my 30s I had two parents. Both of our mothers were very, very ill. My mom was 63, and at Mayo, they couldn't really figure out what was going on, and she could only say yes. My mother-in-law was diagnosed after, this is now her second cancer, with lymphoma, and she's very much struggling with this diagnosis. I was dealing with both of them, going to doctor's appointments in central Iowa and at Mayo with both of them, with two small children in the cities. We took a vacation to Arizona and were driving, and north of Kansas City, we drove upon a very severe accident. There were three of us that were medical professionals, and we each went to different cars. And my car, the woman had died from a broken neck behind the wheel, and her husband was pleading with me to save her. Just before we'd left for Kansas City, my best friend died of lupus at age 30. I was angry with God. I was a faith community nurse at the time. My pastor asked me to consider reading a book by Harold Kushner called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And I'm telling you, that book helped me immensely. It's not uncommon to become angry with God when bad things happen, when they don't make sense. Okay? The next one is what religious ideas or practices do you embrace or adhere to? Do you want religious or spiritual rites or rituals offered to you during times of difficulty or near end of life? Is your faith, your beliefs assisting you in coping? In light of your diagnosis, how is your faith or your beliefs providing you with comfort? Now, these aren't all the questions there are to spiritual assessment, but these are ones I picked out that I felt of all the people I've worked with over the course of a 20-year period with dementia. These were ones that I felt that we might be able to get somewhere with some of their thoughts on this. So what I want you to know is that I believe the St. Odelia staff have printed it in green. If you recall, in the past, I've given you a life story form, and now I added a third page to it that has all of those questions on it. If you want that in an electronic form, just send me a message, and I will email it to you. And you can reword even the life story form. That is a totally adjustable life story form. Create it with any questions or comments you want on there. None of it has to be carved in stone, okay? The next is meaning of spiritual care. Sorry, I've already done that. Let's go to the correct page here, okay? I want to talk about just quickly, and that is positive coping skills. And I'm just going to share this quickly because I want to get caught back up on our timeline here. And that is that positive coping skills can be learned as an essential life lesson. It may be that these are only helpful to the caregivers and the family. It may be too difficult for the person living with dementia. However, the people that I've worked with that have mild cognitive impairment that might not go on to have a dementia, or the people in early stage might like to have some of these thoughts to think about and to apply. It depends on the individual. When you know one person with dementia, you know one. You need to take into account each individual. But what I want you to do is to look through these and see if there's something that can be of help. I'm going to look to the third bullet right now. Positive coping skills can help reduce stress and bring about feelings of comfort, balance, and competence in handling the challenges you're faced with. Examples are problem solving, information seeking, as opposed to denial and wishful thinking, which caused increased distress. And if you could have a toolbox of positive coping mechanisms, it might help you to be more resilient as the stressors continue to rise. It also lists maladaptive coping skills: heavy drinking, drug use, gambling, overeating, overspending, engaging in impulsive and risky behaviors, avoiding the problem completely, hyperfixating on the problem. Okay? So again, this may only apply for the caregivers, but I think we need to address problem-solving skills. The next page, I want to address 4 categories. This first slide addresses 3 of those 4. And can our positive coping skills, first of all, be problem-focused, such as asking for help, setting healthy boundaries, and you can see as we continue on, can it be emotion-focused, which would be through journaling, meditating, taking the time to practice relaxation exercises, positive thinking, reframing things. If you're always saying, oh my gosh, today is the worst, can you reframe it to be, today is tough. However, I'm going to put one foot in front of the other and do the best I can to stay as positive as I can. That's reframing. Okay? What about meaning-focused coping skills? Getting knowledge, getting experience. That's what you're doing tonight, is getting knowledge and experience to help apply to your situation. How about support seeking on the next slide, where you ask for opinions and advice about a situation from specialists and support groups, such as going to a memory cafe, and it continues on with many other ideas for positive coping ideas. So I just want to bring that to people's attention because I think that that's a part of our mental health. I work all the time. Our youngest has been with a disability since 7th grade, very ill since 10th grade, homebound for 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, and took 7 years to get through undergrad. We are forever reframing, 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 reframing. Those positive coping skills have been a part of what we have to go through regularly. So now I want to go to the next slide with spiritual care interventions and support. And this came from a study that was done, and they talk about the effect of group spiritual therapy on the cognition of people 50 years of age and older who had mild dementia. They felt it was a low-cost intervention, and it significantly enhanced the cognitive state in 2 weeks. Now, these people already had a mild dementia, and it helped their cognitive state. The effect of music through music therapists and chaplains can facilitate spiritual expression, and spirituality is that broad and evolving term, but that spirituality is a coping mechanism. Music therapy contributes to validating the individuality of the person. So that's when you create that playlist for the person. If they like Led Zeppelin, you put Led Zeppelin on them. If you like Mozart, you do not put your Mozart on their playlist. Okay? The loss of cognitive capacity may impact older adults' ability to access faith in dementia, often leading to anxiety, spiritual distress, and frustration. There is the possibility that spiritual intervention at the mild stage of the dementia may mitigate spiritual needs in severe dementia. So as I've done through all of these 6, I don't feel that this is the lesser of my talk. I think this is equal to any of the other 5 that I've given. This is important information. Why? I'm talking about quality of life. Okay? The spiritual needs, the faith needs are important. Okay, we're going to go on to the next slide. What do persons living with dementia need to address their spiritual needs? First of all, they need reminders. For my mom, when she was living at Lingblomston, she had the 2 large print devotionals, Our Daily Bread, and it escapes my mind what the other one was. But they were both on her bedside table and her Bible. Now, my mom had Parkinson's syndrome and Lewy body, and she was at the stage where she was drooling a lot, so her Bible was showing that she had been drooling on it. But to me, who cares? It showed that it was being used. And that was important to her every day to do those devotions, every single day. So let's talk about these. They need resources provided for them to maintain their established spiritual and religious rituals and activities by themselves and in a community with others. She was picked up and taken to Bible study every week. My son went every Sunday and took her to chapel on Sunday morning. He sat with the bulletin in her lap, and he would, with his finger, would follow along. Now, I will tell you, it's very difficult for me to tell you, but I will tell you, on her deathbed, the chapel service was playing. My son was on the floor on his knees. My mom was unconscious, and he sat there with his finger following the service the whole time. And tears were falling on the floor because he knew that her faith journey was critical for her. He knew that that was their connection. Every Sunday, doing chapel and having lunch together was absolutely what connected them in a big way. If we can have, as people progress, not all may respond to established religious and spiritual resources, but many still do. So we need to try. And it's not that you failed if things don't work. Then you just go on and try the next thing. Deacon Jim and I were visiting before this tonight, and we've both seen people respond to prayers, to rituals, to the Our Father, to singing Amazing Grace. You know, they may have not spoken in a time, but they'll start joining in as you do these with them. Miracles happen. They're in there, but the dementia has got the control over them so much of the time. But let's not forget, they are in there. They're there. Providers and family reported that people living with dementia had moments of lucidity, like I just said, when exposed to familiar hymns, singing the words, enjoying the music, even for those who appeared past communication. Similar to other reports, the use of religious and spiritual activities with an emotional and procedural component for those in advanced dementia. So the 23rd Psalm, the Lord's Prayer, how great thou art, right? So let's go to everyday moments. Understand and identify elements central to each person's spirituality. You know one person with dementia, you know one person with dementia. The same includes for spirituality. It needs to be individualized. So, give compassionate care and presence. Be reflective on your listening. If you don't know what that means, it means when they say something, reflect it back. If my mom were to say, I saw Adam today and he took me to chapel, you would reflect by saying back to them, Adam took you to chapel. So you're reflecting what they've said. You've been listening well enough that you can repeat it back to them. Participants responded to spiritual and religious rituals and activities with a calming effect, providing a sense of safety through hope and peace, instilling confidence amid loss of control. Other benefits for advanced illness were decreased depressive symptoms and anxiety and maintaining those social relationships. And we want to honor each unique individual's values and support their identity and personhood. So we want to continue to provide for people. Spiritual needs can be expressed through, on the next slide, verbal and nonverbal behavior. It can relate to past experience with meaning. It can prompt connectedness through meaningful relationships with others, nature, art, and the significant. So now let's talk about some of the ideas that you might keep in mind. What about Sabbath candles, mealtime grace, bedtime prayers, religious texts, whether they're from the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, prayer books, religious symbols, whether it's the rosary, the crucifix, the cross, individual and group prayer, music, art, nature, holiday celebrations, favorite hobbies, Eucharist, and religious service attendance. Engaging in these activities helps instill some sense of control over one's current life that they're living. So let's go on to spiritual needs can be expressed through. First of all, I want you to know that connecting with a person living with dementia using familiar sources of meaning and connection will reaffirm them. It'll help them feel understood and valued. Using spiritual and religious activities for emotional support helps them cope, find a sense of control through embracing their faith, and find meaning after a diagnosis of dementia. So the next is, how can you provide access to religious and spiritual activities and expression? Let's go down to halfway through where it says ideal. Remember, the earlier in the dementia journey we can be assessing the spiritual needs, the better. But how about also working with caregivers, providers, and others to see what their perspective is on what might be brought to this situation? I want to then talk about barriers. I want us to think on the next slide about why this has not, how about why spiritual needs have been neglected? What's the reason? Well, first of all, the staff working with our individuals may have limited spiritual care competence and experience. We don't know their backgrounds. Therefore, with lack of understanding, lack of opportunities to learn, lack of support from administration, and then prioritizing people that don't have dementia for care to get to services and such, or maybe even doubting that taking that individual to that service is of value, all play a role. So how can we speak up to help our people get to these services? I feel it's really important that if it's that our person might speak out of turn or speak loudly or say something inappropriate, that we still go with the knowledge that I've presented you with tonight. But their faith journey has always been important to them, and I want them to go to chapel. Yes, they may speak out, but the reason they have a memory mass here is so people can be who they are in their dementia without shame. So isn't it okay to take them to chapel, other places, without shame? And we need to advocate for them to be able to do that. So let's review in the next slide. Spirituality plays an essential role. It's an important factor in health, well-being, and preserved cognitive function as adults age. So if you go to the next slide. It's not letting it happen. Okay, we'll keep going. There we go. There we go. So I want to read this quote on the slide after that. Even someone who is not able to communicate as they once did can join in the Our Father, begin singing Amazing Grace, or clap along to He's Got the Whole World in His Hands. On the next slide, here's some more ideas. to take it even further? Can you volunteer together to engage in community service? Can you go on a leisurely walk in nature, observing the beauty around? Can you share stories and reminisce about family history and traditions, prompting memories with photographs or keepsakes? Can you sing and enjoy music together? On the next slide, can you incorporate prayer or recite affirmations together to create a sense of comfort? Start with the Lord's Prayer, familiar hymns and songs, the Beatitudes, prodigal son, or parables. Common scripture like the 23rd Psalm. Start off the verse and have them join to finish. And Deacon Jim said he's had many times when people will definitely join in and offer. Familiar body motions like prayer gestures and postures can be helpful ways to help them engage with their religious and spiritual practices. Okay, the next slide will then go into celebrating those family traditions to reinforce belonging and continuity, engaging in simple art activities like painting or crafting, focusing on self-expression, participating in gentle yoga or stretching together to promote relaxation. And during the COVID shutdown, we ran 5 groups online. We couldn't do a 5-hour, that's asking way too much of people to do on Zoom, but we did an hour. And I would go on YouTube and find chair yoga, and we successfully would do 5 minutes or so of a chair yoga as part of that hour. So there are things you can find out there. Create a gratitude journal together, noting things you are thankful for each day. Now that's something I could have easily done with my mom, and she would have enjoyed it. So now I want to take and go to the people we haven't talked about. I want to talk about the dementia caregivers. So can we listen actively to caregivers' frustrations and guilt? And if you bear with me, I'd like to read this. Utilize normalizing communication techniques to help caregivers work through feelings. Say things like, you're not alone. Many people experience mental health issues and symptoms. They may be managed or treated. Can you minimize your self-criticism, embrace problem solving, regard healthcare providers as allies? From the Bible, if we look at Proverbs chapter 12, anxiety weighs down the heart, but a kind word cheers it up. Can we teach mindfulness and meditation techniques, including guided meditation, to help relieve their stress? Again, on the next slide, can we provide supportive guidance to prioritize self-care and treatment of the person living with dementia? When our caregivers are helping to the extreme every day, it can arouse and provoke anger, fear, resentment, guilt, unforgiveness. But can we encourage positive self-talk statements? What would those be? Can we encourage them to say, I'm doing the best I can. What I'm doing would be hard for anyone. I'm not perfect, and that's okay. I can't control everything that happens. Sometimes I just need to do what works for right now. Even when I do everything I can think of, the person with dementia will still have the problem behaviors because of the illness. I will enjoy the moments when we can be together in peace. I will seek help from professionals if caregiving becomes too much for me. Caregivers have a lot to carry. We need to support our caregivers. Without our caregivers, our medical system would not be intact. We would go broke trying to provide all the care that our family caregivers provide. We must support and pray for our family caregivers. We must. So I want to talk about the outcome of a shorter special worship service like what St. Odelia does. And this is not from my mind. This is something from studies that have been done. Do you see here? This is from the Administration on Aging. Short-term improvements for people living with dementia include that they sleep better. Their moods are better. They're more engaged and alert. Now I'm going to read this quote that came from the study. It is mysterious how this works so well. We can't put a label on it, but if you have a person with faith-based tendencies or faith was part of their upbringing, the services can speak to a part of memory that elicits responses differently than any other stimuli. It's a really powerful statement, and I don't know about you, but that gives me holy goosebumps. It's beyond what we can humanly be knowing. So this is to make sure that you're aware of the memory care masses that are here every other month, but they are done together with St. Mary of the Lake and White Bear Lake, so people have the opportunity to go monthly. And please, please, please spread it. Honestly, I am not aware of another church in the metro that's doing these. This is a big deal. And this has been going on since before COVID. Okay? So now let me share some more here. Liturgy has the power to reach the deeper memories of people with dementia and connect them to their faith. On the next slide, did you know that the brain has 100,000 miles of fiber long enough to go around the earth 4 times? With all the advances in imaging, there is no one area of the brain for self or spirituality. And the disease-causing dementia cannot destroy the aspects of self and spirituality. Even in advanced dementia, much of the brain is still working, and we're hoping, I believe we're going to see a cure in our lifetime. I do believe that. The next slide says, love, courage, emotion, and the ability to appreciate beauty and spirituality make us human. Even if our own memory is compromised, we are living in the memories of God. I love that. So let's go to the next slide, which says to focus on the abilities that remain. Focus on their ability to enjoy familiar songs, recognize a favorite fragrance, react to a gentle touch or old photos. Many can still read facial expressions and body language and gestures. Many can show you joy, sadness, comfort, and there will be sudden flashes of recognition. Listen to this, the person's relationship with God always remains. I think that's beautiful. The next slide will remind us that our visits matter to those in the late stage. They may not be capable of rationality, but they still have emotion, instinct, love, and spirituality until the very end stage. And I believe it's till they take their last breath. That is my personal belief. I believe they're in that room with us, even after that breath is last drawn. The job of the church community is to share responsibility for the memory on behalf of the individual. Just as during infant baptism, the community promises to stand on behalf of the infant who cannot yet make the decision on their own to join the faith, so we also need to stand on behalf of an elder whose memory is impaired. We look for Jesus in each other. The next one will tell us, through the eyes of God, a person with dementia is no less human, hasn't lost the self, the soul, or for that matter, even all of their brain function. People can live with dementia for a long time, and just as in best practice care, such as Naomi Feil's validation therapy, there can be quality of life. And if that's the one thing that I have helped you to understand in these 6 months that we've been together, I pray that that is the biggest thing that you've heard, is that they are there, and they are worth investing in. And yes, it can be hard work. It can be hard for our caregivers. They need breaks, they need respite. But quality of life is important. So people living with dementia still have the potential to inspire us, teach us, heal us, amuse us, befriend us, calm us, touch us, energize us, enlighten us, empower us, forgive us, nurture us, open our hearts, bring out the best in us, and bring meaning and purpose into our lives. They may have the capacity still to show us how to be humble and trusting and courageous and receptive, how to be authentically ourselves in this present moment and completely without sin. So I helped coordinate a group respite program through Ling Blumston for 15 years, and then continued online work for 5 years. And I will tell you that people would often say, wow, isn't that depressing work? And I will tell you just what we read, that I loved the participants dearly, because when I came in, they loved me for Carolyn. They didn't love me for other reasons, and I loved them for who they were, because I believe I shared this with you early in the presentation. All we have is that present moment. And to me, that's powerful. But I loved the work. There was a lot of joy, a lot of sharing, because there was trust. And that's powerful. So let me share what was in someone's senior thesis paper. My mom's diagnosis and her predictable decline called for me to overcome my fearful reactions about Alzheimer's. But I chose to go very close to this illness and to stay with my mom forever. The result of those choices became an unexpected and precious love story that will be mine for the rest of my life. Yes, they look different. Yes, they may respond differently. Yes, they might embarrass us if we keep holding on to what needs to be normal in society, and instead we just go to where they are. We accept what they're feeling is the present moment. So their mom visited them last night, and mom's been dead for 30 years. Ask them about mom. Tell me more about your relationship with mom. Yeah, we're sisters, but I had a relationship different at a different time with mom. Tell me about your relationship. John Swinton won this award in 2016, and this is a book that he wrote, Living in the Memories of God. And I thought that some of these questions that he asked, this is a man from Scotland, and I thought some of these questions were important to look at. Who am I when I've forgotten who I am? It only matters that we are in relationship to God. What does it mean to love God and be loved by God when I have forgotten who God is? So let me read from Jeremiah chapter 17. God seeks us more than we seek God. I, the Lord, test the mind and search the heart to give all according to their ways. Knowing God involves so much more than memory, intellect, and cognition. God will remember us, and the people of God's memory, the church, will continue to love us and keep us safe. I have 2 links, and I'm going to ask you to go. I don't have the ability to show them to you tonight, but I want you, please, to take the time to go and find these. If you go on your computer to YouTube, even to your search engine, and just type in Alive Inside, Henry, you're going to see a short clip. What I'd love it is if you'd take the time to watch the whole documentary, Alive Inside, but this particular clip is just 6.5 minutes long. And what it is Henry is now so far along in his dementia journey that he sits in his wheelchair in a catatonic state, not interacting with what's going on around him. They have come with his playlist, put the headphones on him, and literally he comes alive. And he starts singing his jazz music, and people ask him questions, and he gives full sentence answers, and they're paragraph long. It's miraculous. It's well worth you understanding why I've been encouraging you about playlists. Alive Inside, it's amazing. The next link I'd like you to look at is a ballerina, and they put this music on that she used to dance to, and she's very similar to Henry. She's kind of catatonic, not engaged, has times of anxiety, and very withdrawn. They put this on, and she begins doing her movements in her wheelchair, and incredibly graceful. And she's being a ballerina again. And you can just see her. It's her person. She's expressing herself. She's getting a chance to be herself again. So I really encourage you to see these, because I'm not trying to flower what dementia looks like, but I am telling you there are ways to reach many people. The next slide, I just want to bring back the reminder about where we're at with our pharmaceuticals and non-pharmaceutical treatments. And all that wheel is showing you is that of the different phases that drugs are in research, we are very close to releasing many drugs into the pipeline. So let me read this for you. This particular wheel is the 2025 Alzheimer's Disease Drug Development Pipeline. It's diverse. There are agents that address 15 basic disease processes. Biomarkers play an important role in current trials to determine trial eligibility, but they have repurposed agents that comprise approximately 1/3 of the agents in the trials in here. And several of these will be released here in the near future. So I see hope in that they continue to try to help. Without this, our healthcare system's in serious trouble. I want you to see the link to get to the St. Odelia recordings of these. And now I want to take time for question and answers. Any questions? Yes, oh, before you leave, hold on 1 second if you can. Okay. Does anybody have a birthday today or within the next couple days? Yes? This is a puzzle courtesy of Deacon Jim, and it's a cognitive game. And you can either use it for yourself, you can use it with others. So I'm going to set this, you want to come up and get it? Congratulations, and happy birthday. I love it, I love it. Continue cleaning out that office. Happy birthday. All right, any questions? Were you surprised that I could talk for an hour and a half on spirituality and faith? You weren't surprised I could talk? You weren't. There's a lot to offer. There's a lot to offer. Yes?
I sing with the chorus.
Yes.
And we go to memory care and many different kinds of senior buildings. And it's amazing what some people that don't really communicate, how they enjoy our music and even enjoy singing along with us.
Yeah, yeah. Do you do this regularly?
Yes, we do it approximately once a week throughout the whole year.
So she sings in a chorus that goes to facilities about once a week throughout the whole year. And she sees how engaged people can be that don't look like they would be engaged to the music that they bring. I believe it. I've seen it. It's isn't it fun? It's probably
Yes,
what keeps
it
you going
really
back.
is.
Thank you for sharing that. That's wonderful. Thank you for your work. It's important work. Anybody else? No? Well, I will stay around for anybody that wishes to come and talk to me. If anybody wants a business card, feel free to grab one from me. Tonight is the final night in our series of 6. And so please share that information. It's on the website. Share it with other people. We've had, I don't know, when I added it all up, was I hallucinating? I think it's over 700. Yeah, so let people know about this. This has been the best way between having you here, having it live streamed for those that couldn't get here tonight, and then having the recordings for people to say, go and listen to this. We have spread this information far larger than I would have ever dreamed. Thanks to St. Odelia for making it happen, because it's not within my power to make it happen. Take care, everyone.
Thank you.